A lunar eclipse, a conjunction between Jupiter and Venus, and two good lineups of planets bookending the month make January a spectacular month to go out stargazing. Well, if you don't mind the cold. Welcome to Observing with Webb, where a high school astronomy teacher tells you what you're looking at, why it's so cool, and what you should check out later this month at night. Don't forget you can get this as a podcast on podbean.com or Stitcher or iTunes. You're on the YouTube channel right now, but my Twitter feed is at Mr. Webb PV. But anyway, it is January of 2019. Happy New Year. And we have not too much going on for the month. However, the things that are happening are really cool. Most importantly, the lunar eclipse. Now, I'll only give you the basics of the lunar eclipse here, the very basics. I will be recording another lunar eclipse video shortly to give you more of the details, but this will get you started, at least in planning and getting ready for it. So what planets can we see? Well, around sunset we have Mars, throughout the night we have nothing, and in the morning is when the real fun begins. So let's start with the evening planets, which would be Mars. Now it's already up here, as you can see, in the southwest after sunset, and it's going to be up there looking pretty bright. Not as bright as it was before, but it'll be up there until about 11 p.m. Now it is going to descend down toward the west throughout the night, but eventually by 11 o'clock it will set. Okay, so that's Mars. Check it out. But let's see, there's nothing else along that ecliptic line, at least for naked eye planets, that we can see until the morning. So that means we have to go to the morning. So let me go back to January 1st. Now that is today when I'm recording this. So let's see. Did you go out there and check it out? Now, it was cloudy for me, but you could have seen the moon, Venus, Jupiter, and Mercury all down there in the southeast. The mornings of January are really where you're going to be able to see a lot of the planets and the moon as well. Now, let's just look at this. I'm going to ignore the moon for now, but what you can see is Venus is very high up there, about 30 degrees above the southeast horizon, and that's going to be very bright, very high up, first one you're going to see. Now, at the beginning of the month, Jupiter is going to be down here by about 20 degrees away. That's two fist widths held at arm's length. And Mercury is going to be down here. So if you have a very clear view of a very clear horizon, you're going to be able to see all three of these. In fact, what should be popping up right about here is a picture that I took last month of, I believe, Jupiter, Venus, and Mercury sort of all hanging out in the morning. And you should be able to see that again this month, but slightly different shapes. But anyway, Venus is up there. It's going to be up there for the whole month. And Jupiter will be up there for the whole month. But watch what happens throughout the month. So check out how Mercury sort of dives away. And by 2 weeks in, you're not going to be able to see it. But then Jupiter and Venus pass by each other, and Saturn joins in the party. Let me back off just a little bit to keep it dark. But Venus and Jupiter on the 22nd are actually going to be as close as they're going to be, only about 2.5 degrees apart. And then for the rest of the month, Saturn gets a little bit higher every morning, and Jupiter gets a little bit higher every morning, and Venus sort of goes to the middle. So by the end of the month, let's go to January 30th, you'll see Jupiter, Venus, and Saturn all in the southeast in the mornings. It's definitely worth going out there. But again, you've got Venus, Jupiter, and then either Mercury or Saturn way down below in the mornings for January. And a bunch of other stuff. So as far as events go, let's first talk about the moon. The new moon will be on the 5th, which means that first week is going to be the best time to take a look out at the night sky because there's no light pollution. There's really no moon. The first quarter moon will be on the 14th, which is kind of when it starts to get a little too bright. The right half is lit up, and you can see it from sunset until about midnight. The full moon is on the 21st, also the eclipse, so keep that in mind. We'll get there. And also the last quarter moon is on the 27th, so that last week should be good up until about midnight when the moon comes out and starts putting all the light pollution up. But let's talk about the first big event, which is this nice lineup in the beginning of the month, the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. And what you'll see here I have set up on January 1st, yesterday, if you got out there, you saw a nice crescent moon with Venus down below and Jupiter below that and Mercury below that. Now on the 2nd, Venus and Jupiter are on opposite sides of the moon. So if you can find the moon, you can find Venus up and to the right, Jupiter down and to the left. And then on the 3rd, you'll see the moon is actually pretty close to Jupiter. In fact, I believe it is 3 degrees to the left of Jupiter. And then on the 4th, you will struggle, but you should be able to, if you have binoculars, you should be able to see a very thin crescent moon. Super duper thin with Mercury down below. But that is on the 1st to the 4th. Now, I want to take a time out here and say that you might be hearing some things about a partial solar eclipse happening on the 5th. Yes, that's happening. No, you're not going to be able to see it unless you live in the North Pacific Ocean or Northeastern Asia. But if you live there, Google it. But I suspect the 10 people who watch this every month kind of live somewhere in North America. At least that's my guess. But this way, you know, if you see stuff going around Facebook, you know that yes, it's happening, but you're not going to see it. Now, nothing is really going to happen until the 12th. Now, I'm going to move this forward to the 12th, but I'm not seeing anything here. That's because we have to look around sunset and then a little bit past that, and we have to look more toward the west. And what are we going to see in the west? Well, we are going to see, well, maybe not quite the west. Get back here. We're going to be able to see Mars and the moon pretty close to each other. In fact, Mars is only 5 degrees up and to the right. That's about 3 fingers held at arm's length. Okay, and they're going to set around 11 p.m., but they're going to be up there, and the moon will be just before a first quarter, so it'll be still a crescent. Now comes the biggest, well, not the biggest, but the best part of January, and that is the total lunar eclipse. What do you have to do to see this total lunar eclipse? Well, January 20th. The next day is Martin Luther King Jr. Day, which is nice because if you don't have to go into work that day, on Monday, you can stay up as late as you want. If you're looking for just the basics, you need to remember these times: 10:30, 11:40, 12:45, and 1:50. These are the times when the partial eclipse is going to begin, when totality begins, when totality ends, and then when all of the partial and everything pretty much ends. All right, so let's get into it. Okay, so here we are. I'm going outside. It's about 9:30. I'm hanging out a little bit early. And what I have going on here is I have this centered on the moon, and you'll see these circles here, which represent the Earth's 2 parts of the shadow. We have the dark inner portion here called the umbra, and the lighter outer portion here, which is called the penumbra, the surrounding fuzzy part. This is the dark inner portion. It's almost a sharp shadow, and this is the fuzzier outside part. So what happens at different times? Well, let's go to about 10:10. What's going to happen is the moon's going to enter that penumbra, okay? And it's just barely going to get a little bit dark. That's about it. Not too bad there. And really, you shouldn't see much of a dimming, okay? However, at 10:34, according to Sky and Telescope, right, boom, right there, okay, that's when the moon actually hits the umbra. That's when the partial part of the eclipse starts. Now, this simulation, I think, oversells what it's going to look like. It's pretty much going to be totally bright. I think this dark color is not really going to happen. But from 10:34 until about 11:41, you're going to get this partial eclipse, and it's going to start eating away at the moon. And then it's going to be totally inside at just about 11:40, 11:41, 11:42. That's when all of the moon is in the dark part of the Earth's shadow. That's when it's totally engulfed, and now you have to look for a dark moon. It's not going to be as easy to find if you haven't been looking. The moon is completely within the Earth's shadow, and it's going to appear this sort of dark red, or maybe a lighter red or a dark orange, and that depends on the atmosphere of the Earth at that time. Why does it look like that? Well, real quick, the light is coming from the sun. It passes through the Earth's atmosphere. Technically, there shouldn't really be any light at all. If there was no Earth's atmosphere, if there was no air, you wouldn't see these colors. It would be completely black. You couldn't see it at all. But there is an atmosphere, and that atmosphere, what it does is it filters out most of the light. There's Roy G. Biv, remember? Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Well, all the green, blue, indigo, violet gets scattered or absorbed or deflected by the atmosphere, and what's left is the Roy, the red, orange, and maybe a little bit of yellow, and that sort of gets bent toward the moon, and that red and orange is what you're seeing. If you think about this poetically, and technically correct, what you're seeing, if you were on the moon and looked back, you'd be seeing all of the Earth's sunsets and sunrises all at once. What's going to happen then from here is it's going to be the darkest at about 12:12. That's when it's right as dead center as it can be for this eclipse. And then it's going to start coming out of totality. And then at about 12:44 is when the moon will clip the outside of that umbra again. And then the partial eclipse starts happening. It'll start coming out until about 1:51 when it's completely out of the umbra, and then it will travel out of the umbra, which supposedly ends at about 2:15. According to this simulation, it's 2:44, but that part doesn't matter. It is very hard to see that at all. But anyway, don't forget those times. That's when you want to be out there to check this out and take those pictures and plan ahead. We've got two more things for the month of January. And the first one happens on January 22nd, the morning after the morning of the eclipse. And that is Jupiter and Venus are going to be about 2.5 degrees apart from each other. If you get up after 4:30, now if we look at 4:30, they're very low in the sky around 4:30, and they're rising up. And as long as you get out there before 7, I'd say, you might get a little more out of it than that, but you'll be able to see Venus and Jupiter only about 2 pinkies widths apart from each other. And now, don't forget the days around it are going to be very similar as well. The 20th, 21st, 22nd, 23rd, 24th, they're still going to be close together, but not quite as close as the 22nd. And the last thing I want to show you actually goes a little bit into February, which starts on the 30th. Okay? And on the 30th, you see, first of all, Saturn has joined the party. It's low in the sky, but it's there. You should be able to see it. Venus is still very, very bright, but Jupiter is now higher than Venus, up and to the right a little bit. And then the moon joins the party as well. So on the 30th, the moon will be up highest with Jupiter, Venus, and Saturn down below. And then on the 31st, you notice that the moon will actually get a little bit closer to Venus than Jupiter. That should be a very, very beautiful sight just driving in the morning. Then on February 1st, the moon is almost directly in between Saturn and Venus. And if you're up for a challenge on February 2nd, Saturn will be, I believe, about 4 degrees up and to the right of a very thin crescent moon. That's going to be tough to see. You will probably need binoculars and a very clear view of the horizon. And lastly, a quick tour of some constellations. All right, so let's say you look straight up into the sky after dinner, let's say 7 o'clock, and you take a look up there, you should still see Andromeda, okay, that nice little cornucopia shape off to the one side. Let me twist that around a little bit. Right over here. And that's got the Andromeda Galaxy right about here. And also, Cassiopeia is up here. Now, it's not directly above, but it's pretty close. And it will look like a W, or if you're turned around, an M. But it's up there, looking beautiful. And this right angle here points not only to the constellation of Andromeda, but directly to the Andromeda Galaxy. So use that if you have dark skies and decent vision, or a telescope or binoculars. That's where you're looking, okay? Take these two stars and go about the same distance up, or where this points to. So right in this area, right where that text is. Oh, well. And also Perseus is down here. I like Perseus after dinner because it kind of looks like another cornucopia, but a slightly different shape, and it pours itself down right to the Pleiades down here, which is quite nice to see. But let's say you go out a little bit later. Let's say you go out, let's say 10 p.m. or a little bit later. Straight up above you, right where the zenith is, that little red mark is the zenith, you will see Auriga the Charioteer. And it's got the bright star Capella right here. Beautiful reddish star to see. And kind of looks like a pentagon, or it depends on how many stars you count. Could be a hexagon as well, but that's right up there. And Orion the Hunter is right down below it, basically pointing to Auriga, which is a really cool one to find, with Gemini off to the left here as well. And then lastly, if I go out in the mornings, I do most mornings so I can get up and go to work, I'd like to stick with Leo the Lion for this month. Again, it's just a beautiful backward question mark with a right triangle to the left of the question mark. And it's just nice and high in the sky off to the south. Pretty easy to find. Just very bright stars that look very pretty. So, yeah, that's about it for the month of January. Not too many events, but some really good ones. Make sure you get out there and take a look in the morning. Take a look at those planets at the beginning and the end of the month, and definitely check out that eclipse. I hope there's very clear skies for you all, and me. So, and pay attention. I will give a more detailed description of the eclipse in an upcoming video. But anyway, that is it for the month. So I wish you very clear, dark skies for the month of January.